This is the main news from Korea. People's Power former party leader Lee Jun-suk held a press conference on the 13th and criticized President Yoon Suk-yeol head-on, saying, "It is a crisis of the president, not the party," but the ruling party leadership and the presidential office did not officially respond. Criticism is also growing that the entire passport does not show the ability to respond to the political repercussions that the Lee Jun-suk risk will bring. The Lee Jun-suk risk faced by the passport consists of four major factors: whether the court's injunction is cited, the long-term public opinion battle of former party leader Lee Jun-suk, whether the party's non-unji gathers, and the direction of public opinion. The press conference of former party leader Lee Jun-suk was held ahead of the court hearing on the application for an injunction to suspend the inauguration of the non-captain, scheduled for the 17th. It is highly likely that the result of the injunction will determine whether the Lee Jun-suk variable will become a typhoon in a teacup or shake the entire passport. The fact that the ruling party could not solve their problems politically and left it to the courts is a scene that symbolically shows the situation of the passport, which is on the verge of losing its ability to self-correct. Former party leader Lee Jun-suk poured out disclosure claims about President Yoon, such as being told that he had made harsh remarks such as this XX that XX about him during the last presidential election. He also listed 6 members of the party under their real names, including President Yoon, floor leader Kwon Song-dong, and lawmaker Jang Jae-won. However, former party leader Lee Jun-suk blatantly did not mention a word about the issues raised to him, such as the suspicion of teachers destroying evidence of sexual entertainment. On the 13th, the first day of the Liberation Day holiday, the National Federation of Democratic Trade Unions held a large-scale rally in downtown Seoul and argued for the purpose of suspending the ROK-US joint exercise. In particular, the Confederation of Trade Unions caused a great stir by reading the solidarity speech sent by the Central Committee of the Korean Workers' Union, a North Korean workers' group, on the spot. In this regard, Kim Ki-hyeon, a member of the People's Strength of the People's Union, aimed at the KCTU and said, "The KCTU has to die for this country to live and for the youth to live." Sharply contrasted. According to the political circles on the 15th, Rep. Kim Ki-hyeon said on his Facebook the day before, "Yesterday's KCTU rally in the middle of downtown Seoul was truly a nuisance to the people." Rep. Kim said, to call it a workers' rally, slogans such as self-reliant and peaceful reunification, stop Korea-US war exercises, and dissolve the ROK-US alliance were all around, and it was like watching a political agitation rally by the North Korean Workers' Party to overthrow the system. The KCTU, which has been under the protection of power and reigned above the law under the Moon Jae-in administration, has been degenerating into a power group that seeks to overthrow the system by openly instigating political instigation and violence against business owners and non-union members, he said. He continued, "Everyone is taking a break because they have created fear of gang harassment by the Confederation of Trade Unions, but if such a supercapacity Confederation of Trade Unions continues to be neglected, the future of the Korean economy will inevitably be bleak. If not, we must reform the Confederation of Trade Unions with social force," he insisted. In addition, he raised the level of criticism to the highest level by saying, "The KCTU must die for this country to live and the youth to live." Ahn Jae-olsu, a member of the People's Strength Council, also posted on his Facebook page on the 12th and shared a poster at the National Workers' Congress on Liberation Day containing a message against the ROK-US joint exercise and the THAAD high-altitude missile defense system. "Is it a political movement group, not a labor union?" Rep. Ahn Jae-olsu said, "People have already decided whether the KCTU is a labor organization that represents the rights and interests of powerless workers such as non-regular workers, or whether it is a political movement organization that intervenes in political issues to create social unrest through illegal strikes and to enjoy the benefits from this. You will," he warned. Kwon Song-dong, floor leader of the KCTU, also pointed out, "It's just a workers' convention in its shell, and the essence is a political struggle and an anti-American struggle." Kwon said, "The Confederation of Trade Unions must return to the form of a labor union. We must not become a host to the forces that are trying to shake up the Republic of Korea like it is now." "Will," he set the day. A spokesperson for the People's Power floor made a comment and said, "I urge you to stop the anachronistic political struggle and stick to the original role of the union." "Are you not uploading?" he said. A spokesperson for the People's Power spokesperson said, "I can't help but ask whether the claims of Korean workers in 2022 are correct," said the KCTU's argument for dissolution of the Korea-US alliance at the rally the day before. "Isn't it?" he asked. "In fact, the people only think of the things that the KCTU acted to protect the rights and interests of workers," he said. On the 15th, a poll showed that President Yoon Suk-yeol's approval rating for state affairs rebounded slightly after 8 weeks and re-entered the 30% range. As a result of a real meter survey of 2,515 people over the age of 18 across the country for 5 days from the 8th to 12th, 30.4% of the respondents answered that they are doing well for President Yoon's government affairs. This is a 1.1 percentage point increase from the 29.3% survey last week, and President Yoon's approval rating, which had fallen since the 4th week of June, stopped falling for the first time in 8 weeks and rose slightly. According to a survey last week, it fell to the 20% level 3 months after taking office, but re-entered the 30% level within a week. The Democratic Party of Korea was engulfed in turmoil over the revision of the party constitution, party rules and code, such as revision of the Lee Jae-myung bulletproof party constitution and erase Moon Jae-in, a week before the 8-armed National Convention. Although the National Convention Preparatory Committee is stating that there is nothing wrong with the conclusion after internal discussion, the conflict between personal names and screams seems to intensify. The key issues are the revision of Article 80 of the party constitution, which stipulates that the suspension of duties upon prosecution of corrupt officials, and the proposal to delete the Moon Jae-in government policy philosophy, such as income-led growth and one house for one household, from the program. Article 80(1) of the current party constitution, which states that the duty of a watch officer charged with violating the corruption-related law may be suspended at the same time as the prosecution. A decision is expected on the 16th. Revisions to the expression of income-led growth, one household, one house, etc. in the code will be processed on the same day. In response, Rep. Lee Won-wook of Ban Lee Jae-myung posted on Facebook on the 12th in relation to the amendment of Article 80 of the party constitution, party members who are concerned about Rep. Lee Jae-myung's judicial risk will retain their party representative status even if they are indicted after Rep. Lee Jae-myung became the party leader. To do it, he said. On the other hand, Rep. Chung Chong-rae, a candidate for the top member of the pro-Lee Jae-myung system, said, "Do not stab your comrades with the enemy's weapon." He cannot entrust the fate of the party to a single prosecutor. Regarding erasing former President Moon Jae-in, Rep. Yoon Young-chan, a candidate for the top member of the pro-Moon Jae-in circle, posted on Facebook on the 11th, "The task of erasing the Moon Jae-in government, stop now." And at the same time asserted that it is a new Democratic Party. As Samsung Electronics Vice Chairman Lee Jae-yong was reinstated on the 15th as a special for Liberation Day, attention is focused on his future moves. As he said, "I will work hard for the national economy." In the lottery sentiment on the 12th, it is expected to strengthen on-site management, such as visiting business sites. There are also speculations that large-scale mergers and acquisitions, which have been sluggish for the past 5 years, will be pursued. According to the business community on the 14th, Vice Chairman Lee will stay at his home during the Liberation Day holiday to plan his future business strategy. After that, Vice Chairman Han Jong-hee, President Kai Hyun Kai, and chief executives of major business areas are expected to convene to check management issues. Previously, in August of last year, Vice Chairman Lee convened the executives of major Samsung affiliates at the Samsung SOCO office building immediately after being released from parole and held a meeting to review the current issues. Vice Chairman Lee Jae-hop's on-site management is also expected to accelerate. In particular, the possibility of visiting semiconductor business sites is strengthened. In the recent semiconductor industry, the growth rate of semiconductor exports is rapidly slowing due to the global economic downturn. Vice Chairman Lee can visit the business site, tour the production line, and check Samsung's technological prowess. The Hwaseong campus in Gyeonggi Province, which succeeded in mass-producing foundry products through the world's first ternary process in June, and the Pyeongtaek campus, which U.S. President Joe Biden visited during his visit to Korea in May, are mentioned. Some observers are predicting that large-scale mergers and acquisitions, which have been virtually put on hold due to the absence of a CEO, will be promoted quickly after acquiring Harman Kardon, an audio/electronics-related automotive electronic equipment subsidiary, for about $8 billion in 2017. Currently, global fabless company ARM, automotive semiconductor companies NPX Semiconductor and Infineon are being discussed as targets for mergers and acquisitions. There is also an expectation that Samsung will try to encourage its employees to carry out its 450 trillion won investment and 80,000 new hiring plans announced in May without any setbacks. Samsung, the only company among the 4 major domestic groups that maintains regular recruitment of new employees, will begin open recruitment of new employees with college graduates in the second half of 2022 as early as next month. There is also interest in whether Vice Chairman Lee Jae-yong will attend the regular meeting of the Samsung Compliance Committee to be held on the 16th. Vice Chairman Lee Jae-yong met with Compliance Committee Chairman Lee Chan-hee in March and promised active support. In this regard, a business official predicted, there is a possibility that Vice Chairman Lee Jae-yong will attend the meeting in order to strengthen his will to compliance management. In some business circles, there is also a possibility that Vice Chairman Lee Jae-yong, who is currently a non-executive executive, will change his status to a full-time executive again according to this lottery action and will officially go to work in the office of the Samsung office. Vice Chairman Lee Jae-yong, who joined Samsung Electronics in 1991 as a general manager, was appointed assistant managing director in 2001 and became an executive. However, in January of last year, he was sentenced to 2 years and 6 months in prison for the so-called Gakjeongnongdan incident and was arrested, and his position within the company was changed to a part-time executive. In particular, even after being released on parole in August of last year, it is known that he maintains the status of a part-time executive, conscious of the controversy over employment restrictions. Currently, there are only 5 non-executive executives at Samsung Electronics, including Vice Chairman Lee Jae-yong and 4 outside directors. While the transaction stagnation due to the interest rate hike continues, the price of shopping malls continues to rise. According to the result of a real estate-related platform company analyzing transaction information registered in the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, and Transport's Real Transaction Price Disclosure System on the 14th through its Commercial Real Estate Analysis Solution Program, the average selling price of a nationwide shopping mall in the first half of this year was 26.2 million won per 3.3 square meters. This is the highest level ever recorded on a semi-annual basis since the collection of related statistics began in 2006. After rising from 17.19 million won in the first half of 2020 to 19.17 million won in the second half of the same year, it rose to 19.8 million won in the first half of last year, and 22.3 million won in the second half, breaking the 20 million won lead. Since then, it peaked at 26.2 million won in the first half of this year. From the end of last year to recently, the pressure to raise the base rate increased and the burden of repayment of interest on loans increased. In the case of Seoul, the retail price per 3.3 square meters has risen from 28.31 million won in the first half of 2020 to 38.75 million won in the first half of this year. However, the average selling price of shopping malls in the province has fallen for 1 year in a row. In the first half of last year and the second half of last year, they rebounded to 13.69 million won and 13.75 million won, respectively, but fell again to 12.83 million won in the first half of this year. Although the transaction volume of commercial and commercial real estate across the country is on the decline, the share of the total building transaction volume has reached an all-time high. On the other hand, the proportion of transactions in residential buildings fell to an all-time low of 72.5%. Although household loans have been declining overall since the end of last year, the proportion of multi-debtors, which is most likely to become insolvent, such as default, increased during a period of rising interest rates. As the interest rate on loans is expected to continue to rise until the end of the year along with the base rate hike, there is a warning that measures are needed as it can cause a financial crisis if multiple borrowers who cannot afford the interest burden appear one after another. According to a recent financial stability report, if the BOK continues to raise interest rates and internal and external conditions worsen in the future, the repayment ability of vulnerable debtors will decrease, and there is a risk that credit risk will increase, especially among young people and self-employed vulnerable borrowers who have greatly increased their loans. He analyzed. Financial institutions, including non-banking sectors, need to strengthen their efforts to accumulate provisions and recapitalize in case of possible deterioration in loan quality. Policy authorities are also protecting the vulnerable in terms of finance and income so that the expansion of credit risk of multiple debtors does not impair financial stability. We will have to support them selectively, he explained. In the second quarter of this year, Hanmi Semiconductor, a semiconductor equipment-related company located in Incheon, recorded sales of 123.2 billion won and an operating profit of 43.9 billion won, recording the highest quarterly performance ever. The highest sales in the previous quarter was 108.9 billion won, raised in the second quarter of last year. Hanmi Semiconductor will continue to lead the industry in the field of vision placement equipment that performs cutting and inspection functions in the semiconductor back-end process. Recently, after localizing the micro-SAW equipment, which has been dependent on imports from Japan, etc., it is actively supplying it to domestic and foreign companies along with vision placement. An official from Hanmi Semiconductor said, in the second quarter of this year, along with vision placement, orders for key equipment such as flip chip bonders increased, domestic and overseas logistics conditions improved, and conditions improved such as the lifting of the corona lockdown in China. We will continue our earnings growth through strategies such as the additional launch of SAW. Semiconductor equipment companies continued their earnings growth in the second quarter of this year. Hanmi Semiconductor, Jusung Engineering, and Eugene Tech, etc., have been following the semiconductor super cycle flow that has continued from last year to the first half of this year, and they have revealed their significantly improved performance one after another. These companies are planning to continue the upward trend in earnings by launching new equipment and expanding into solar and secondary battery-related equipment areas with the prospect that the semiconductor economy will enter a downward phase after the second half of this year. A Buddhist Union member who was preparing for a one-man demonstration saying that the former general director had interfered in the election of the Buddhist general manager was assaulted by monks in the middle of Gangnam, Seoul. According to the Buddhist Union, on the morning of the 14th, near Iljamon of Bongyunsa Temple in Gangnam-gu, Seoul, the head of the Planning and Public Relations Department of the Buddhist Trade Union was assaulted by 2 monks, calling for the former General Secretary Jae Seung to stop meddling in the election and to resign from public office at Bongyunsa Temple and Dongguk University. Suffered. It is reported that Park was robbed of a one-man protest sign from monks and Buddhists on the side of Bongyunsa Temple and was punched and kicked by monks in the process of protesting. While being assaulted, Mr. Park also covered up filth presumed to be human excrement. Several police officers were also present at the scene, but they could not stop the assault. In a video provided by the concessionary union, 2 monks suppressed Park with force, knocking him to the floor and kicking him despite the policeman's reluctance. Park complained of pain in his back and knee due to the assault and severely injured his lip. In the registration of candidates for the election for the next general election of the Jiaji faction from the 9th to the 11th, Jinwu, who served as the head of the school education center, was the sole candidate for the candidacy. Senior monks of the temple expressed their support by issuing a statement that they agreed to appoint Jinwu as the next general director candidate. In fact, in accordance with the no-vote election rule of the Longitudinal Election Act, which determines the elected candidate without a voting procedure when running for a single candidate, Jinwu has effectively confirmed the position of the next general secretary. However, inside and outside the Jiaji faction, there have been claims that the former general secretary, Jae Seung, has intervened in the overall election, including the promotion of a single candidate by consensus. The attack of Monk Jeok-kwang that occurred 9 years ago is also being talked about again. The victim of Monk Jeok-kwang's assault took place in a park near the general office of Jogye-sa Temple in Seoul in August 2013. During a press conference that raised allegations of habitual gambling by General Director Jae Seung, he held a press conference held by several monks and held his arms and legs in the presence of a general in Korean Buddhism. They were taken to the basement of the History and Culture Museum. In a video released on YouTube at the time, Monk Jeok-kwang seemed frightened and said, "This is not Korea. It's not the police," he said, calling for help. He was beaten indiscriminately by several monks and servants, and suffered 4 weeks of injuries, including a fractured toe. 1 Jogye-sa monk and 1 temple administrator charged with joint injury were sentenced to probation at the first trial, but the level of punishment was lowered at the trial and received a fine of 10 million won. 4 other monks and 1 temple administrator who took part in the incident were also indicted. After the incident, Jeok-kwang, who complained of various damages, was reported in the media as living dependent on psychiatric treatment and drugs. On the other hand, it is known that the monk, who was fined for taking part in the assault, rose to a major position in the Buddhist world, far from being disadvantaged. In 2017, the Jiaji Religious Destruction Clearing Citizens Solidarity held a press conference in front of the National Police Agency to urge the reinvestigation of the gang assault and confinement of Monk Jeok-kwang. Suspicions have been raised that a YouTuber with 720,000 subscribers was cheating on food prices at a restaurant. YouTuber A and his party, who recently visited a hamburger shop in Chuncheon, Gangwon-do, received a refund for the food by decorating it as if hair had come out of the food. On-site CCTV footage showed Mr. A eating at the restaurant with a man and a woman at the time. A young woman took something of her from the blanket hanging from her chair and placed it in a tissue on her table, and she and the man stood up. She then got a refund for her food after the woman who was left showed her waitress a tissue and claimed that her hair had come out of the food she ate. The restaurant owner said that he only found out that he had been deceived after checking the CCTV of the store. They even did a similar thing a month ago, asking them to bring the food back, and it was found that they ate and ate. The police saw that A and his party were habitually scamming and started to secure new recruits. Person A is a YouTuber with 720,000 subscribers, and the YouTube channel is currently unavailable for comments. A delegation from the U.S. Congress will visit Taiwan on the 14th and 15th to meet with local high-level leaders. It has been 12 days since U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. The American Association of Taiwan in Taiwan issued a statement on the 14th that Democrats Ed Mackey, John Garamendi, Alan Lowenthal, and Don Bayer and Republican Rep. Amua Coleman Raidwagon will visit Taiwan as part of their Indo-Pacific visit. The American Association of Taiwan is the de facto U.S. embassy in Taiwan. The delegation will meet with local senior leaders to discuss U.S. Taiwan relations, regional security, trade and investment, global supply chains, climate change, and mutual concerns, the American Association of Taiwan in Taiwan said. In response to this, China has been conducting massive armed protests, including entering the Taiwan Air Defense Identification Zone and conducting military exercises across the midline of the Taiwan Strait. The U.S. Army is developing a tactical bra that can be worn with military uniforms by women for the first time since its inception. According to the Washington Post recently, the U.S. Army Combat Capability Development Command is promoting the production of 4 prototypes called the so-called Army Tactical Bra. As women accounted for 16.5% of the U.S. military service in 2018, this project was initiated when there was a voice within the military that it was necessary to break away from the existing male-centered uniform standards and acknowledge diversity. The Army Uniform Board, which manages the procurement of clothing for the U.S. Army, is expected to decide whether to formally introduce it in the fall. If approved by the Army Uniforms Board, it will be the first official military bra awarded to a female soldier in Army history. The Army Times, which covers news about the U.S. military and military, said the tactical bra will become an additional piece of protection for the female military, and that the new product will also be incorporated into body armor. Meanwhile, the U.S. Army and Air Force decided to relax strict hair regulations last year, such as allowing pigtails and ponytails, and the US Navy last month measured the bodies of hundreds of female soldiers to create new uniforms that fit their body characteristics. According to the Washington Post, this is seen as an extension of measures recently implemented to recognize the diversity of service members in the U.S. military and improve uniform standards for women. Tesla CEO Elon Musk announced on the 14th that Tesla's cumulative electric vehicle production has exceeded 3 million units. Musk posted on Twitter on the same day that it had built its 1 millionth electric vehicle at its Shanghai plant in China, and announced that the company's total production had also surpassed 3 million units. In addition, on July 20, it announced that it had produced its 2 millionth electric vehicle at its Fremont, California, U.S. plant, and confirmed that it had achieved the milestone of 3 million units in less than a month. CNBC analyzed that Tesla's Shanghai plant had a setback in the production of electric vehicles due to the COVID-19 lockdown in April, but it quickly overcame this and increased production of new cars. Benzinga, an economic media outlet, reported that the Shanghai plant made more than 500,000 Model Y sports utility vehicles last month and is expected to produce more than 600,000 units per month in the future. Musk announced at the general shareholders meeting on the 4th of this month that it had already surpassed 1.5 million units by presenting a production target of 2 million units this year. Thank you for watching today. Please like and subscribe.